One of the most anticipated races of the season, Imola, is finally here, and we're going to see a lot of competition up front due to all of the massive upgrade packages being brought by the top dog teams. With Ferrari introducing their Evo version of the SF24, Mercedes optimism about finding a better operating window for their car, and Red Bull finishing the new concept of the RB20 in Imola, a lot is at stake for all of the teams. But what we should be aware of is the fact that McLaren will start the Imola race with 2 upgraded cars, not just one like in Miami. So with all this in mind, what are the upgrades that the teams are bringing in Imola, and are they exactly what we needed for a competitive campaign? The team that everyone has their eyes on in Imola is Ferrari, not just because the race is in Italy and they will have massive support from the crowd, but also because this is the first upgrade of any kind that the Maranello team is introducing to the SF24. For starters, it's worth mentioning that Ferrari managed to keep the gap close to Red Bull just through some setup changes and ride heights, which helped them a lot in the tyre management apart from the downforce generation. But now that process is going to be emphasised to a greater extent, and Ferrari will introduce a massive upgrade package that they are hoping will bring around 3/10 of performance to their car. And when we say massive, we really do mean it, as some of the parts that will be reworked and evolved to a next grade are the bodywork of the car, the side pod inlets, as well as an entirely new version of the floor. What could have been seen from the test that Ferrari completed in Fiorano is that they've drawn inspiration from the RB20 when it comes to the side pod inlet, introducing the shark mouth concept that the Austrian team brought to the grid in 2024. Another very bold move by Ferrari is that they've decided to abandon one of their own innovations, the S-duct, which was designed to bring air from the floor of the undercut to the upper wall of the side pods. The exit vent, which has been implemented around the cockpit in the launch spec version of the SF24, has been removed, and the only exit vent that is present on the car now, located on the hood, is no longer connected to the vertical inlet in front of the side pods. What is very interesting to note in Ferrari's design is that it now resembles more of the P inlet that was previously seen in Mercedes and Alpine, so it could very well be noted that the vertical inlet of the SF24 has the exclusive function of cooling and internal blowing. We shall not be surprised if Ferrari starts the fight for race wins, as Vasseur expects, on a weekly level, mostly because of the indicator that they've thrown away the bypass system, or the S-duct, in order to seek a new path of development. In order to challenge Red Bull and to be able to put yourself in a position to beat them, you have to make bold moves, and this is one of them. When talking about this matter, Vasseur went on to say, "I am sure that in Imola we will have a better race by putting everything together. We know that many brought upgrades to the races that we finished ahead of, but we are at the point of development where if you bring something, it's not a matter of seconds but of tenths. Without a doubt, we will be able to fight for the victory in Imola, but I believe there is a gap that varies from track to track and from compound to compound, which makes more of a difference than an update. Whether or not this will be enough for Ferrari to challenge Verstappen up at the front, time will tell, but signs of vulnerability have been shown by the Austrian team, and it seems like they will have to prove that the new concept and design are a new trendsetter in the sport in a much more difficult manner for their liking. Although the momentum is still on their side, despite them already losing 2 races in 6 events, which was unthinkable in 2023, Red Bull are coming on upgrades on their own, in which they will further complete the change of design that they were pushed into by their own success. As Newey said, the limit with the RB19 has been reached, and if they want to be competitive, they need to chase something new, or something that has been tried out by their rivals but failed to show its true potential. Be that as it may, Red Bull has drawn a bit of inspiration for some of the models and concepts that were dubbed to be failures in the past couple of years, primarily by Mercedes. On paper, what Red Bull is currently chasing, with the extreme interpretation of the side pod design, as well as the bodywork around it, involving the bulgy engine cover, is the concept that should bring you the biggest amount of downforce and therefore make your car the most efficient one on the grid. The problem is that too much downforce can be hurtful if you can't find the right operating window for the car, which was Mercedes' issue in the past 2 years and was the pinnacle of their failed designs. However, with Red Bull's masterminds working on the complexity of the floor and the time that they had to develop this similar design to the Zero Pod concept Mercedes rocked in the past couple of years, there is no doubt that we should be looking at something far more superior than what the Silver Arrows have done. But as I mentioned earlier, there are signs of the RB20 that the Chief Technical Officer in departure, Adrian Newey, said that he is not happy about. And when talking about the car in general, as well as the overall summary of it, Newey added, "There is always room for improvement. This car is the third evolution of the 2022 one under this rule set, and we have one more year before the huge change of 2026. The fundamental architecture of the car has remained the same, but I mean, for instance, that there is one feature on the car that I'm not terribly happy with this year, and that is something that will either change later in the year or probably more likely will be re-altered for the next season." This definitely shows that while Red Bull is still the team to catch on pure merit, especially if you put that car in Max's hands, they are showing signs of cracking and vulnerability, and if we are to add the internal power struggles that have likely led to Newey's decision to leave the team, then we should be expecting a little bit of drama off the track that would influence their on-track performance as well. Whether or not Ferrari or McLaren would be smart to capitalise on that, time will tell. But what is definitely interesting to keep an eye on is the development that has been going on at Mercedes, although it has been shadowed by their rivals and their massive step in the right direction. The W15 has proved to be yet another difficult car to handle. However, the team is adamant that they have made a lot of steps in the right direction. It's just the fact that their rivals have been able to outperform and outdevelop them in general. In Miami, the team brought some very important upgrades that involved a new floor, new front wing flaps, front suspension fairings and high temperature vents on the hood. And now in Imola, the team will try to be even more competitive by introducing a new rear wing and new beam wing. The primary goal of Mercedes upgrades is to achieve more downforce on the rear of their car, which should definitely help them with one of the Achilles heels of their season, and that is the temperature of the rear tyres and the overheating process. When talking about this, Chauvelin was adamant that the team is making progress and is moving in the right direction. It's just the fact that they're working in such a small operating window that a tiny inconvenience or a setup change is throwing the car away from it. So from Imola onwards, Mercedes' primary goal would be to focus on extending this operating window and learning more about their car while also chasing performance from it. Encouraged by the fact that Hamilton chased Perez for almost the entirety of the post-safety car period in Miami on pure merit, we could be seeing a much more competitive version of the W15 in Imola, although it's still far away from competing for race wins or maybe even podiums as we speak. The threat that we should be paying very close attention to is McLaren, as they're coming off the first career win for Norris and will enter the Imola race with 2 upgraded cars rather than what they had in Miami, just 1. With all this in mind, do you think that Red Bull rivals have started to smell blood and will attack for more vengeance in the following period, trying to dethrone Max and maybe setting a new pecking order? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and once you do that, have a look at the video that's appearing on your screen right now.